My name is Natalia Ortiz, and I am an organizer with the New York Collective of Radical Educators. I am also a former public school teacher and a mother of two children, and one of which is in a public school.
Hi, my name is Pam Segura. I'm also an organizer with the New York Collective of Radical Educators, and I am an English and advisory teacher in the Bronx in a high school.
So we're here today to talk to you all around Inquiry to Action groups, AKA ITAGs, right? And so what those are, it's a study group essentially of teachers, educators, who are interested in exploring social justice issues in their classrooms or schools. And so they come together for a certain extended time. And we can talk to you a little bit more around our model, but you come together around a certain time to explore that issue. And usually in that exploring of the issue, you're reading, you're watching videos, and you're having conversation. And from there, you're also thinking about action and application, right? So there's analysis plus the action. So it's a true community of practice. And so that's what an ITAG is. And usually the reason why we've created these spaces is because oftentimes we feel like PDs are not enough in our schools or aren't necessarily giving us the tools that we want or need. Sometimes also as social justice educators, there isn't, sometimes we feel alone in our communities at our schools. And so what does it mean to also organize with other folks in different schools and across schools to build community? And it's also less of a, I think, Pam, you can talk to this too, right? But like less of the hierarchical, but more of a community of learners where we're all sharing knowledge and expertise. And so, yeah, those are some of the goals or the overarching reasons why we've established or started or did these ITAGs in the first place. I think, it's NICOR has been doing this for like about 12 years. So that we also have co-coordinators and we do it, there's a season for it. And we have, it's usually actually 8 weeks where it's like the first session is a kickoff where we basically, we'll do anywhere between 3 to 5 ITAGs. We'll offer 3 to 5 ITAGs and then people register for the ITAGs. We usually cap it around 20 to 25. Sometimes our ITAG co-facilitators will want 15 because they believe in like the intimacy of a group. And so we'll do that sometimes. And then it'll run 6 weeks, the same day, every week, at the same time, every week, because what we've learned is that if you can kind of, organize it on a day and a week and not move the day and time around, that then also will impact attendance and consistent, right? So we do it for 6 weeks. And then at the end, the last session, usually we'll do either a closing where we come together and every ITAG and participants from every ITAG will share aspects of what they're learning, their takeaways, or even their action to one another. And if it hasn't been a closing, NICOR also has like a conference that we do every 2 years. And so we'll also invite ITAGs to share at the conference. And that way other teachers and educators have access to the work that the ITAG was building or working around.
I can talk about how it was for my group this season, like me and Jen's group. The first 3 weeks, we were just studying freedom schools. We were reading Cedric Robinson's Black Marxism, and we were trying to learn how to work with each other. So we also read emergent strategies. We read pieces of emergent strategies from Adrienne Marie Brown. And then around, I think it definitely was the 4th day where we did this activity, this brainstorming activity where we thought about what were we going to do after learning together. And what it became for us is like an envisioning activity of like, what does the ideal school look like for you? And does your curriculum reflect that? And that's what our actual action is. But it took about 3 weeks of learning and getting to know each other. And then the other half was more of the concrete details of who, what, when, where, and that kind of stuff. And it was great because after the celebration that we had this season, we connected with someone else who was a co-facilitator of an ITAG. And she connected us with the People's Forum. So now we're going to run our action at this social justice fair that the People's Forum is hosting. And the People's Forum is like this space of public learning in Manhattan. That's the best way I could explain it. But so that's how it was for us this time around.
So the co-facilitator model, the way that it's worked. So what, for NICOR, what's really important is that of the two facilitators, one has to identify as a person of color. And of the two facilitators, one has to be, at a minimum of one, has to be in a school building Monday through Friday, understand what it's like to be, and I say in a school building because sometimes it's a classroom teacher, but sometimes it's a social worker, or sometimes it's a parent coordinator, right? It doesn't have to be only a classroom teacher, but they do need to understand the public educational landscape and the Monday through Friday, right? Now the other person, sometimes it is someone who works in a school, but it could also be, like, we have a lot of educational scholars who are members of NICOR who are currently pursuing higher education, but we're former teachers who want to continue to participate in the ITAG space. So those are some of the co-facilitators. Sometimes the co-facilitators are community members. So it'll be, someone from the Teachers Unite, which is our sister organization that does restorative justice work, right? Or sometimes it's a parent or a youth. We've had the YLC join in facilitating ITAGs. So there's some flexibility there. So the two facilitators who sign up to hold the space, one of the things we're clear around those facilitators is that they're part of the learning as well. What they're doing mostly is to kind of set the arc of the training, kind of like the backbone, right? So, and then depending on what comes up in conversation, either that backbone changes, shifts, adjusts, right? But they're kind of working in community with the participants around where the need is, right?
I mean, the way that it started back in, I don't know how many years ago, it was a group of teachers that would come together around a topic or a question, and they would see each other at protests all the time. And so now, mind you, maybe you don't know of those group of teachers, or maybe you have a cohort of teachers in your school that are all interested in one thing and you don't feel like you're being supported at your school. I mean, maybe it is like having a core of 3 to 5 that you can start with, that have this interest to explore an issue or a question. So I think you use what you have. If it's 6 weeks versus 5 weeks versus 7 weeks, there's a commitment that we're going to come together over a meal. Maybe different people take different parts, find the text, share the text. There's the expectation that you read it before, but that you'll also have some time to look at it during. We discuss it, and then we think about the way it applies to our work. And in those conversations, by week 3 or 4, you should already be thinking about, okay, well, let's create an action. What's our action? What's our takeaway? Is it an action, like an individual action that I'm going to implement in my classroom? Is it a collective action that we're doing publicly or we're inviting others to be a part of? And so thinking about what that action is. That way by week 6, there's clear steps.
I'm thinking just things that were super important for me and for Jen and I when we were co-facilitating is to have space to process things after, especially in the beginning. I think, and I feel very comfortable. I want to speak for myself, but if Jen were here, I think she would agree. We were kind of nervous the first time around just because, we had a great ITAG experience before. We want to make sure that folks feel like this is a generous process for them. So like that debriefing after, like, ooh, what did you think about this? What did you think about that? That really helped us as co-facilitators. And honoring that time, Jen and I would also meet for about 2 hours virtually, like the Sunday. Our ITAG met on Wednesday, so we would talk a little bit on Sunday. And it was definitely, we did that a lot more in the beginning. Towards the end, like, we didn't have to do that as much, but that was important for us to develop like our own rhythm as co-facilitators. I also think you said this too, Nathy, but the food is so important. Like teachers coming out of a full day of teaching. I mean, we had a bottle of wine a few times, let's be real. Like that was necessary to build community. Cause sometimes you have a really stressful day teaching. So that was so important to be able to just eat with each other.
So if you go on our website, there's like a section where you could go to, I think it's projects, and then there's iTags. And under that, there's like frequently asked questions. And in that, it kind of talks about what an iTag is. Do I have to, now some of these questions are specific to NICOR iTags, like are the way we run them. But some of them it can still kind of give you the gist for if you wanted to kind of hold it or run it in your school or in your town or whatever it is. It can give you some ideas for how to do that. Also, what you'll find there is like our registration links and even our flyers for every year that we've done them with different topics and their description. So sometimes, you know, it might be good to kind of get ideas for what the iTag could be or look like, and you can look through those to kind of either look for some ideas or think about what that could look like. I mean, you can always email info@nicor.org or me directly. I'm one of the iTag co-coordinators at Natalia@nicor.org, and we can also just answer some questions for you or just kind of talk through the model some more, any questions you may have. I will say it might be important depending on, you know, your community of educators or teachers. If you want to spend a little time before you actually go into the iTag, kind of setting values or norms for how you want one to run the space, but also just what does social justice look like or mean to you, right? We have a set of points of unity that kind of ground us and keep us aligned. That way, if there are any questions that come up or tensions that come up that don't align with our points of unity or goals, it's easier for us to engage with that person, because then it's like, well, I don't know if this is the place for you, because here are our values, this is our approach to education and public education, and here is our understanding of racial capitalism, and we do center the experiences of people of color and women, right? So like that way we're not engaging in those possible arguments in the iTag, and we're actually able to do the work moving forward.